Hello everyone, this is Bob and Threadbare, and welcome back to the Crew 2.
And I'm Great Joe, and still happy to be here.
And you may notice that it's nighttime.
Ooh.
And you can actually see things, which is an improvement over the Crew 1 from what I've seen of videos.
Yeah, that's one in a long list of improvements.
But we are once again in a touring car, because once again it's time to go to the pro racing circuit, and this time we're actually doing the pro car events.
Ooh.
Do you recognize this car?
Well, I recognize the make and model. I'm wondering about the generation. This is one of the newer Ford GTs, but like I know there was a new one.
Yeah, it came out in the 2010s. It's that version.
Oh.
But that's not the version we're taking into the event. Instead, we're taking a blacked out Ferrari FXX.
3, 2.
That thing is exceedingly weird. Well, also, like, if you buy it, then you're pretty much... It's a rental. Like, you have to buy access to it, and then you go to a track, have Ferrari ferry it to that track. It's so weird.
Yeah, well, luckily this is a racing game, and my character is a professional racer. So he has every right to drive this car, even though he doesn't work for any team and he keeps buying branded vehicles. Anyway, so I will say, I believe this is one of the cars that they just sort of give you as one of the updates.
Oh.
Like, whether or not you even have the season pass, sometimes they just give you cars. Like that weird green convertible that I used the other day. That was also a free update car.
You mean the KTM crossbow, right?
I believe so. But yeah, how about racing during the dawn here?
That's beautiful. Do you believe, like, some races take, like, they start at around this hour and then go in through the day, but of course everything's compressed.
Yeah. The amount of daylight, too. But yes, of course, the touring car races are naturally on circuits, on closed circuits, and they are composed of several laps, between 2 to 4, depending on the length of the circuit. And I should add that I bumped the difficulty up for this one to hard, but I am still putting everybody way behind me.
But you're also taking a very sloppy line through most of these corners.
Yeah.
Except for here.
Something I need to work on. Something that gets better the more practice I've had, and I get out of practice when it's been a few weeks between recordings, as it was in this case.
But yeah, this is on hard. I think I remember you mentioning what... Is there a level above this?
Yes, Ace. But my car isn't good enough for Ace yet. Still, there is a decent variety in the kind of touring cars you can buy, so we'll be hopping out of the FXX here and going on to something new for the next race.
Ooh.
Like, what about the Aston Martin Vulcan?
Ooh.
That's the one I got for winning the race, or winning the... Okay, apparently not. Hang on.
Look at that massive rear window.
It's like a bubble. But, yeah, so I just upgraded stuff during the dissolve there. So now I'm going in as this old Mercedes. Because apparently this is one of the events where you have to drive a specific car.
Oh, you just got a muffler there on the side.
3, 2, 1.
I believe the one term to describe this design is just violently 60s.
Yeah. But hey, everybody else is in the same kind of vehicle.
I love working on classic cars like this one. You know why? No computers to get in the way. It's just me and the machine.
It is kind of nice seeing all those opposing drivers just kind of drifting along there.
See you later, Clarence.
I'm betting you didn't think that because it's a classic, it's going to be easy to drive.
No.
Won't be getting any power assist at all, so be ready. Because keeping that beautiful little beast under control is going to take everything you've got.
Yeah, who in the world thinks that classic cars are easier to drive?
You know the one thing that's improved consistently over the decades?
Yeah, I mean...
Suspension?
And,
There's a
of course,
reason people still love racing like
assists.
this. Just skill and steel without the bells and whistles.
Oh yeah, computers.
Whoops.
Independent computerized control, pushrod suspensions, and
Yeah, and sure enough, this car is actually pretty hard to keep going around a turn. At least compared to other touring cars. Like, it's got pretty good grip if it were in a street race, even a day, but against other touring cars, it's kind of sloppy.
As far as I'm concerned, this is real racing, and everything else is just a sideshow. There's a simple elegance to running like this. Save the tricks and gimmicks. This is where real drivers excel.
So what's your opinion on what real racing is?
I have a very Pomo opinion of most things. If you gotta be like exclusionist about it, anything, I'm pretty sure to disagree. Like, walking sims are video games. Running between light posts, that's racing. Just go hog wild.
Alright.
Though I will say, the one motorsport that I miss out of every video game is Formula Off-Road. I want to see it in a video game. It's never gonna happen though.
I think we can call this an unqualified success.
How
Not
come?
just your performance, but also the race. It's good to remember that there's still a place for the old school.
You know, that off-road simulation game, Spin Tires?
Not particularly.
Well, it simulates the movement of the ground under your tires, as you're on a massive truck. And, basically, you need to run that sort of simulation
1.
on a grander scale. There's a whole lot of dirt moving around just while each driver is going up the I want to say track, but it's just like an embankment. And it's really loose dirt. Some of it's muddy, but usually it isn't. It's sand. And then there's like 1,400 horsepower pushing against it.
Nice. You're on the way to another win.
Well, I just wanted to say, by the way, that I had to cut the Aston Martin race I did with the Vulcan for time. But right now we're in a Lamborghini, and this is a interesting race because it features all 3 generations of the Clarence clan.
Ooh.
Because you may have missed them because you were discussing dirt physics, but there was Clarence Sr. in the 60s touring car, Clarence Jr. in the 80s touring car, and Clarence himself in the modern touring car. Clarence III.
And you're blasting past past all 3 of them.
Yeah. I guess the AI for touring events is just less aggressive or less competent, because I have had no trouble in winning any touring event. Like, all I needed to compete on the hard difficulty touring events was a car with good enough parts. These are the first ones I've done, period.
Must have been a conscious design decision.
I don't know.
I can't imagine that not being on purpose somehow.
And, well, the odd thing, though, is that the Formula 1 difficulty seems to be a bit harder in terms of racer AI. We'll be seeing that eventually. But, so for the music, I've chosen soundtracks from old movies. There's a lot of hot air balloons in this one, so I figured Around the World in 80 Days would be an appropriate choice.
Oh, check out that reflection there in the ocean.
Yeah. Like, you can actually see the building outlines in the water.
Yeah, I just like that arch causing a freakout.
But there are only so many closed-circuit race areas in the game, so... Well, it's like with the motocross events. There are, like, set race areas, and they change where the walls are between events. Only in this case, the walls are the kind that you can't break through, so no cheating shortcuts for touring cars. Let's see. We've got time to do one more race after this.
Ooh.
So I'm going to do a special race. That was San Francisco that was mirrored in the water, by the way.
Okay.
Alright, I want to find another touring car race, so I'm going to filter the icons for touring cars. Yep, only 4 circuits in the world here. Each one holding several events. But that's not the one I want. The one I want is actually in Jersey City. It's near the headquarters for professional racing.
Wait a minute.
Ah, here it is. Yes, you can't have an event, or... You can't have touring cars in America without at least one oval track.
I mean, that's fair. But then again, like, you can't have oval racing without, well, in my opinion, having at least 30 other drivers on the track.
Yes, that does add to the difficulty. But in this case, we're taking an old Chevy Camaro out. With a stunning paint job, I must say. And that is a stock paint job, if that's not clear.
I really like it.
3, 2,
But yes, just to make things vaguely difficult, they covered the track in snow. And when I say vaguely difficult, I mean... Whoops. There they all go.
Jesus, we're walking on water here.
That's a very sacrilegious pun.
Well, I'm sure they've had their explorations with death, near misses and whatnot.
I'm just saying, Jesus, you're walking on water.
Yeah, that's you. You're Jesus now.
Kind of a silly joke. Not sure why I never went into first-person mode for this race.
Sure would spice things up.
Yeah. I think this is like an 8-lap race.
I know that some dev out there calculated just the needed time for that to happen. But come on.
Yep.
It's-
I don't know, it could be 16 laps.
This is true. It could be full NASCAR length.
All I know for certain is that it's 2 minutes are gone, and so is half of the race.
Oh boy.
A race of 2 turns and 2 straights. And me being a clumsy idiot who's apparently just wanted to make things a little bit harder for himself. Also, maybe you noticed, but this is a right-hand loop.
Yeah? Yeah, you're not turning to the left. That's a... I think there's a few, there's a few events in NASCAR where they take the track in reverse. I couldn't name them, but
I don't know,
I'm
but
pretty sure they're out there.
it's so well known that NASCAR races left turns. I feel like this must have been a deliberate choice just to screw with people.
Well, I can't imagine any other reason.
Anyway, gotta love the scenery, those boring brown buildings of Manhattan behind us.
The snow looks nice. There's trees. They have snow on them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose there's that. 8% of the race left.
I'm just thinking about Daytona. You know, you put up Daytona, you put it on the speedway, and there's 39 other racers, last I counted. There's always someone in front of you, right until the very end.
Oh hey, rare parts.
Ooh, you can.
Or whatever they're called. Epic parts, that's right. The yellow ones are epic.
Hey, you still got snow on your thing.
Yeah, it'll wear off eventually. But that's enough racing for now, because it's time to show you how you can create a new livery for your vehicle.
Ooh.
So, heading on down to Florida here. Hitting the garage. And liveries can actually appear on more vehicles than custom parts can. Just ignore the ice cream truck there.
I appreciate it.
You. I will swap out a car in your slot.
Well,
A Lamborghini Veneno. This is a hypercar,
it's got a fin.
but we're not interested in that. We're not interested in colors even, because we did that last video. Instead, we are going to create my livery.
Ooh.
So we've got several different areas where we can apply it. Left side, front side, back side, top side. And these are the shapes you can add to it.
Ooh, boy.
Primitives, patterns, racing patterns, logos,
Shout out to the sunset stencil.
3 fonts,
Ooh.
and local.
Wait.
There's a folder where you can put images and then apply those images to your cars.
Oh, man.
That's how the flex tape "I cut this boat in half" appeared. Anyway, I kind of like this checkerboard pattern, so we're going to apply that to the car. First, we got to pick a good color for it. Of course, we could just pick one of the swatches here. But we could also fine-tune it and adjust hue, saturation, and brightness independently. It's just a little bit darker, I think. But red's good.
Wow. Yep, there's a slider I'm noticing that's missing.
Oh?
Texture, matteness.
Hmm.
So,
Well, at this point I can change the scale,
oh,
and the controls are up in the upper right-hand corner. You can rotate the image, you can change its scale, you can change its location. And then there's the freescale and skew options. Now, freescale, that means stretching an image out or squashing it down. Oh, here's just the rotation part. And if you want to rotate everything back, you can see the exact number you're rotating to down below. Just above the white line there. Yes, and here's the freescale.
oh dear.
Yes, now I can adjust this pattern to actually fit the contours of the Lamborghini's body. Make it a little bit of a better fit. And that's the cat bumping the mouse. Yes, this is looking a little bit better.
I like it.
And yes, this is the skew function. You can see it just sort of twists the sides in different directions. And if you want to adjust it back to 0, you can check out the numbers there. And then there's transparency. How much of the car do you want to see through it? Alright, I'm pretty satisfied with this. So, if you click the left joystick, you can clone an image. Get a second version that you can adjust differently. Or you can press B and drop all the changes immediately forever.
Oh man.
But whatever. There. Oh, wrong button again. And there. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. And this is, by the way, what you were talking about. You can change the material type.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, one of these is matte, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it changes the reflective nature of the decal.
Okay.
And it tells you the material in the upper left-hand corner there. And yeah, you can do that by pressing the left center button on your controller. Alright,
So what?
let's apply a new image on top of this one. Let's make it straight black. Make it a little bigger. There, perfect.
Oh, then someone drove on top of your car.
Yeah. And yes, let's extend it back a little bit further. Try and get it to match up with the first image there. That's how this one is designed, to just sort of keep going if you want it to. Alright. That looks wonderful, but it's not the order I want these decals to be there. And so I can press take backward or bring forward to change which one is on top.
Ooh.
Also, you may have noticed, I am at 4 layers out of 1,000 possible layers. Looking better and better, isn't it?
It's truly a statement on...
I know.
I'm sorry, I can't even pull out my,
Pink! That'll blend in perfectly.
Hey, that's a good pink. That's a genuinely good pink, I like it.
Next to that red.
Yeah? Yeah.
You really think so?
Look, I might follow a certain Delco Duck on Twitter. The guy who did the artwork for Drift Stage, a game that might not even be coming out ever.
Alright, so here's the thing. I want to get this image on the other side of the car, but it needs to be mirrored. It needs to look exactly the same as this one.
Ooh.
So how do I go about doing that? Well, cloning won't work, because that just copies it on this side. But there's more things I can do than that. If I hit Menu, this option comes up. And so first of all, I need to delete the clone I made. And yes, I can copy by pressing up, and then come to this side and press down to paste. But of course it's kind of misaligned. So let's try flipping it horizontally.
There you go. Kinda?
No, not quite. It's a little too far forward, because the center point is a little too far forward. So I tried a vertical flip, but no, that's not working either. But hey, you know what? There is another thing you can do. First, I will need to fiddle with this before realizing it. So let me just go ahead and do that. That's right. If you press Menu without having selected an image, you get more options.
Oh.
The 2D mode is to help you really nail down the exact points where you want it. But yeah, let's Menu, copy this to the other side. And there it is.
And there it is.
exactly as it is on the left side. My masterpiece is complete. But that is horribly ugly, so let's switch it out for one of the created liveries that they offer. These are created by the developer, Ivory Tower, and they have an incredible variety of them. Like, they just start out with animals here. But watch that little black line there, moving to the right.
Yep, it's going.
Just how slow it took to get this far.
Ooh. That one's not terrible.
Yeah. And then you've also got these filters here. Although they don't seem to be too useful for the Ivory Tower liveries. I don't know, maybe they've got some in the first couple categories there. But then you've got the top 100. These are user-created liveries.
Oh.
Ooh, Tron.
Wait. This one, I believe, is a reference to Saints Row the Third.
It could be. Yeah, a couple of these are just actually pretty nice. Just sort of small, tasteful racing lines.
Oh, gotta have your...
Also animes.
What do they call it? Itasha? Yeah, Itasha.
Ooh.
Ooh, I like this one.
Gold.
Yeah, it's an outrageous car. Gotta have an outrageous... Oh,
and Batman.
Nope. It's cute. I like it.
Yeah. Because these are user-created, they can violate all sorts of trademarks. Don't give a shit. I like the Tron car, so that's what I'm going with.
I like the use of matte texturing. Really gives it that Tron look.
For today's review, patron Sam Kassan has asked me to take a look at a 1971 film called Vanishing Point. It's not exactly beloved so much as it's notorious, or at least that's the impression I get, but has managed to achieve something of a cult status thanks to its popularity in certain quarters. The story about the story. We're back in the new Hollywood movement for this one, and in particular, we're looking at the anti-establishment aspect of it. You see, one thing movies had to do back when the Hollywood Production Code was in force was respect the rule of law and respect the United States government. This was likely rooted in patriotism, fears about communism, the need to avoid controversy, or really all of the above. And when that code disappeared, it allowed filmmakers to create anti-establishment films starring anti-establishment characters. Now that's exactly what they did. But let me get nuanced here. Movies about rebelling teens were popular basically ever since the genre got invented. They were certainly popular all throughout the 1950s when the code was still in full force, but there were some restrictions on the kind of characters you could portray and the kind of endings that could happen to it. For instance, a movie could star a draft-dodging teen, but he would need to turn himself in by the end of the film. You could have a movie about a criminal, but the criminal would either have to get caught or die in the ending. You could make a film about corruption, but only about corruption in the private sector, not within any government agency. So there was some anti-establishment sentiment in 1950s and 60s movies, but the death of the code opened the floodgates. Of course, it also helped that anti-establishment thinking was really popular at the time. Between the later years of the Vietnam War, the Watergate scandal, and the counterculture movement, it should come as no surprise that the recently freed Hollywood would capitalize on the wave of anti-capitalist thought. Funny how that works, isn't it? The story for Vanishing Point began as a script written by Guillermo Cabrera Infante, a Cuban author who was inspired by two unrelated real-life incidents. The script was very much about sex, drugs, rock and roll, and fast cars, and let's just say, all of that made it onto the screen. Cabrera sold the script to 20th Century Fox, and they gave the director's seat to Richard C. Serafian. Serafian was a veteran actor and director in 1971, but Vanishing Point would be the highlight of his career. The list of actors is also a bunch of names that you probably haven't heard of. The main car in the movie is a 1970 Dodge Challenger RT 440 Magnum. The reason they went with a Dodge is because their parent company, Chrysler, had a long-standing deal with Fox to rent any of their cars for $1 a day. Having your car feature in a movie is basically free advertising, hence why Chrysler was willing to do that. The stunt coordinator chose the Challenger because he thought it was a sturdy car, good for high-speed chase scenes, and they would end up using 5 models for the filming. Critical reception at the time was fairly negative. Reviewers said that Vanishing Point was meandering and wasted too much time, or they said that the film was too busy reveling in its own nihilism to make a decent point. Fox gave the movie a limited release in America, but it wound up being popular in Europe. Maybe nihilism was more popular over there, or maybe Vanishing Point gained an exotic edge that it lacked in its home country. Either way, the success led Fox to re-release it as a B-movie for double features, and license it to network TV. These days, Vanishing Point is a popular movie with some remarkably famous directors. Steven Spielberg loves the movie, and he made his feature-length debut that same year it came out with a TV movie called Duel. Go figure, but Duel is also about a long-distance road chase. Quentin Tarantino referenced Vanishing Point in his movie Death Proof, and one of the cars in the big chase scene of that movie is an old Dodge Challenger. Edgar Wright is a fan of Vanishing Point, and it was one of the movies that inspired his film Baby Driver. But now let's put the praise aside and focus on the story. The movie begins with the end, as a group of police vehicles and a couple of big bulldozers drive through a dusty California town and set up a roadblock. They're here to stop the protagonist's car, a white Dodge Challenger that's racing at high speed down the highway. When he reaches the roadblock, he immediately turns around and heads the other way, but there are 3 patrol cars coming at him and blocking the pavement. So he drives off the road and into the desert. He can't keep going through the desert though, so after a moment to think, he heads back to the road and we get a flashback to 2 days earlier. We are now in Denver, Colorado, and it's almost midnight on a Friday. We find out our protagonist is named Kowalski, and he's in Denver to deliver a car to a guy named Sandy. Sandy thinks Kowalski should take a break and get some sleep, but Kowalski just wants to know which of Sandy's cars needs to go to San Francisco. That car would be the 1970 Dodge Challenger. Kowalski makes a pit stop at a biker bar, and he meets a drug dealer named Jake, who gives him a little something for the road. Specifically, Benzedrine, a kind of amphetamine that will help him keep his energy up for the long drive. Kowalski says he has to be in Frisco on Sunday at 3 in the afternoon, and Jake says that's impossible. Incidentally, we later find out that Kowalski's real delivery date is a much more reasonable Monday afternoon. So they make a bet. If Kowalski makes it, his drugs are free. If he doesn't, he'll pay double next time. The action moves to a funk radio station in the middle of nowhere, and it's blind, black, and very lively DJ, who goes by Super Soul. Mostly, this is to set up the soundtrack, which is entirely diegetic, which means it only comes from in-story sources. With the music started, we switch right back to Kowalski as a couple of motorcycle cops try to pull him over. Instead, he runs them off the road, and we get a very disjointed flashback to when Kowalski raced motorcycles. After Kowalski gets away, the cops put out an APB on his Challenger and set up checkpoints. So he cuts through a rail yard to get past one and ends up outmaneuvering and outrunning the police cars. And we get another disjointed flashback of Kowalski getting in an accident during a stock car race. Kowalski is out of the mountain roads and onto the desert plains when he encounters an obnoxious driver in a bright orange helmet driving a 1966 Jaguar XKE Roadster. They race each other, they get aggressive, but when the Jag driver flips his ride and flies into a river, Kowalski stops and goes back to see if he's okay. He is, but Kowalski can't stick around because the cops are still on his tail. Lucky for him, American sports cars are great at straight-line speed, and the desert is full of straight roads. Kowalski reaches Nevada just before noon on Saturday, and he takes a short break because Utah police don't have jurisdiction, and it'll take a while before Nevada State Police can get organized. He stops for gas at a lonely mobile station, and when the attendant turns out to be a somewhat attractive blonde woman, we get another flashback. This time, it's to when Kowalski was a police officer, and his partner was sexually assaulting a suspect in the back seat of their patrol car. When the partner starts tearing off her clothes, Kowalski pins the guy's arm and lets the girl get away. Meanwhile, DJ Super Soul has been checking the APBs and listening to police broadcasts, so he knows about the Dodge Challenger, and he knows the driver is only being hunted for speeding and reckless endangerment. So far, at least, he has managed to avoid hurting anyone. Even the Jag driver didn't want to press charges. So, Super Soul demonizes the highway patrol and calls Kowalski the last American hero, the last beautiful free soul on this planet. A couple of officers in particular don't exactly appreciate this characterization. They also take it personally when they roll their car after a sharp turn, and they jump into another officer's car to continue the chase. However, neither they nor the other cops follow Kowalski when he cuts across the desert to avoid another roadblock. And incidentally, this is why rural police drive a lot of SUVs these days. Kowalski is still driving through the desert when he comes across what are probably his own tire tracks going perpendicular. When he steps out of the car to think, Super Soul addresses Kowalski personally to wish him well in his escape and warn him about the desert. Kowalski doesn't really care though, and as he continues driving, we get another flashback with him having sex and smoking joints with another blonde woman. He should be arresting her for drug possession, but instead, he's watching her go surfing in winter. Back in the present, Kowalski's front left tire goes flat. After he changes it, a rattlesnake starts threatening him, but then an old man grabs the snake and puts it in a basket. Apparently he lives out here and sells the snakes for supplies. The old man agrees to point Kowalski in the right direction, but only after he drives them to his destination. Meanwhile, the cops have sent a helicopter to track Kowalski, so the old man has him hide the car under some bushes. The old man's destination turns out to be a rather cultist Pentecostal congregation. The pastor gives the old man some gas for Kowalski, but he also tells him to make sure that stranger goes away. As Kowalski drives back to the road, the police dig up his record. He spent 1960 to 1964 in Vietnam and got a Medal of Honor. And then he joined the San Diego Police Force and reached Detective First Class, only to be dishonorably discharged in 1967 for classified reasons. After that, he was a professional driver in various jobs. When we cut back to Kowalski, he stops to help a couple of gay men with car trouble, but he throws them out when one of them pulls a gun on him. After that, Super Soul talks to Kowalski using the radio as if both of them can hear each other, and he warns the driver that California cops are preparing some serious roadblocks for him. Then, some white thugs break into the radio station and beat the shit out of Super Soul and his technician. Kowalski has become pretty famous thanks to Super Soul, so a biker says hi to him on the road and takes him to his house to give him some speed. While he's at the house, Super Soul comes back on the air and says Kowalski can make it if he takes the road to Sonora. That would give him a pretty straight shot to San Francisco, if he can make it over the Sierra Mountains. However, Kowalski senses something off about Super Soul's tone and has the biker go investigate. He also turns down an offer of sex and drugs from the biker's naked partner, who is apparently a fan of Kowalski, and might be one of the women from the flashback. There are a lot of women with long blonde hair in this movie, and I am having trouble keeping them straight. The biker comes back, and sure enough, the biggest roadblock is the one on the way to Sonora. So he uses a small motorbike with a flashing red light and an air raid siren to fool the police into thinking they need to clear the road for another officer. Thus, Kowalski officially crosses into California on California Highway 167 at 7:12 p.m. Kowalski stops by a phone booth to call Jake, his dealer, and apparently the biker girl couldn't be the surfer because the surfer was Kowalski's girlfriend and drowned 5 years ago. Meanwhile, the well-funded California Highway Patrol is tracking Kowalski's progress and plan to stop him at Cisco. which is kind of odd, because according to Google Maps, Cisco is about 150 miles north of that point on the map. The closest town to that point is called Knight's Ferry. We skip over Kowalski's night crossing the Sierra Nevadas to join both him and Super Soul as he enters the Central Valley of California. We see the bulldozer blockade from the beginning of the movie, not to mention a growing number of spectators. There's a light shining between the two bulldozer blades, and Kowalski smiles as he thinks there's enough room for him to get through. Instead, he crashes and dies in a fireball. As responders put out the fire and clean up the wreckage, and as the spectators all start dispersing, the credits roll. The cars. Today's video was about one of the most basic forms of racing, touring cars, and today's movie was also about driving fast. So I figure I'll make today's car segment about the science of fast racing. Not the science of fast cars, that's something different. Now, today I'll be explaining how and where to find the racing line. First, let me explain what I'm talking about. Every time you turn, you lose speed. This is because you can only have one velocity pointing one direction. When you make a small turn, you can carry most of that velocity with you, but when you make a U-turn, you have to burn nearly all of your velocity away in order to start building up a new velocity pointed in the other direction. You also have to worry about losing control. When you turn your vehicle around, your velocity doesn't automatically turn with you. It's still pushing you in your original direction, and you have to fight against that push so that you can move in the direction you want. This is where it's important to measure lateral Gs. If your car can't turn fast enough because the lateral Gs are pushing it too hard, that's called understeer, and you'll go off the road. If your car turns faster than your tires can handle, that's called oversteer, and you'll lose traction and skid out of control. All of that leads to two fundamental points about racing corners. First, whenever you approach a corner, you must always slow down so that you can maintain control of your vehicle. Second, you must always spend as little time as possible in the corner so that you can spend most of your time accelerating in your new straight line. And that brings us to the racing line. The racing line is the idea that every corner and every track has a single line that will minimize your corner time and let you keep as much speed as possible. Your goal as a racing driver should be to find that line and always stay on top of it. For example, let's take a standard 90-degree turn. The racing line for this curve is nice and simple. Start on the outside, turn towards the inside, and then come out on the outside. This makes the turn as gradual as possible, and that means the lateral Gs won't spike and force you to lose control. When you're looking at a slow turn or a chicane, a twisty road that goes back and forth, your goal there should be to ignore the curve as much as possible and look for the straightest line that will take you from one end of the turns to the other. Now here's where technology helps. If you have enough downforce and tires with good grip, your car can take more lateral Gs without losing control. That means that you can afford to take a sharper turn and thus spend most of your time driving straight. With that in mind, you can shift your racing line to start your turn later and reach the apex, the middle of your turn later. Speed is also important when you're looking at racing lines. The faster you're going before the turn, the more lateral Gs you'll experience. Thus, it's not just about how well your car can grip, it's also about how quickly it can brake, and how fast you think you can take that turn before you lose control. If car A has bad grip, and car B has good grip, then car B can take the gradual racing line faster than car A. Or it can take the sharp racing line at the same speed. So which is better? Hard to say. But then that's why every driver has their own style. Thanks for joining me again for today's movie and car review, and I hope I'll see you next time for a couple of brothers and a whole lot of rhythm and blues.